get started. Let me just make sure I've got control as well. Yes, great. Okay, so hello. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and welcome to the final of our Highland Community Waste Partnership Legacy webinars. My name is Georgina. I'm the partnership coordinator. Over the past 3 years, I've had the pleasure and the privilege of coordinating the Highland Community Waste Partnership. In this time, we've learned a lot, both about how to deliver waste reduction in our communities and across the Highlands, and also about how to work together in partnership in order to achieve this. So as the project is coming to an end at the end of this month, it was really important to us to make sure that all this learning that we've generated is not lost. It's shared as far and wide with others who are working in the space so that others can build on it and can learn from it and build on it going forward. So the webinar series that we've been running this week is one way that we're doing this. All these webinars are recorded, including today's session. We also ran sessions earlier this week talking about partnership working and what we've learned about that, our work around food waste and composting, our work around share and repair. And today's session obviously focuses on our work around single-use items and packaging. So all of these recordings will be available on our legacy website as soon as possible, hopefully by sort of next week. So yeah, if you missed any of those sessions, you can go back and have a look, and hopefully this is a resource for people going forward as well. I think it's been really great to hear directly from all the different partners about all the amazing work that they've been doing in their communities and some of the insights and learning that have come out of that. So I encourage you to go revisit all of these webinars if you're interested. In addition to those, we're also pulling all of this learning together into a legacy report, which will also link to case studies on each of the specific sort of projects and activities that we're talking about. And all of this will sit on a legacy website for the project, which all of this should be up and running sort of by the summer of 2025 at the latest. So please watch this space and keep an eye out. So just to kick us off, I'm going to give a little bit of background about the partnership, just to provide a bit of context and an introduction. So the Highland Community Waste Partnership is a project that brought together 8 community groups from across the Scottish Highlands to work together on reducing waste and building a movement for more sustainable consumption. The project was coordinated by Keep Scotland Beautiful, so that's where I sit, and I have a small team at Keep Scotland Beautiful supporting with stakeholder engagement and delivery of some projects, some of which we'll hear about today. And the project was funded by the National Lottery Climate Action Fund. It's worth saying that each of the partnership organizations, community groups who comprise the partnership had worked in this space previously, so they all sort of bring their own background and experience and expertise. And the idea was that by joining forces, we could really learn from each other, share ideas, and kind of achieve a bigger impact than we could on our own, and also achieve a wider reach across the Highland region. So as you can see on that little map, we've tried to sort of achieve a good distribution and spread across the Highlands. So we have groups from sort of Fort William up to Thurso, from Skye across to the Black Isle. So really trying to work across the Highland region to find solutions that work across the area. The project focused on 3 key areas of waste that were sort of identified by the partners as areas that they wanted to focus on and that were of interest and of benefit to the local communities. So we did work around reducing food waste and promoting composting. We did work around promoting sharing and repairing instead of buying things new and throwing them away. And we also did work around reducing single-use items and packaging. And that is what today's webinar is focusing on. So just to give a little overview of what we're talking about today and sort of the work that we've carried out in this strand. So it includes kind of local packaging waste solutions. So a number of projects looking at how packaging waste can be recycled and reused locally within local communities. There was also a number of local projects that focused on reuse, so promoting reusables, reusable alternatives to single-use kind of items and packaging. And finally, we also delivered a number of more regional packaging interventions that were led by Keep Scotland Beautiful and build on our own sort of experience and expertise working in that space. So without further ado, I will hand over to our first speaker. I welcome Amy from Broadford Strath Community Company, who will talk to us about some of their local waste management programs in Skye. Over to you, Amy.
Thank you very much, Georgina. Lovely to see everybody today. So I'm just going to talk about, you saw on the slide there, 3 different things. First up is cardboard reuse. So the team that's been working for the last couple of years inherited the idea from the first project officer to tackle cardboard as a waste problem here on Skye. It was initially thought that we would try and tackle that on quite a large scale right across the island. But we soon realized that actually that's really difficult and you need a lot of time and a lot of kind of effort into that. So we pivoted into thinking about this on small scale projects and solutions, rather than trying to tackle what is a really big problem with everybody's cardboard on business cardboard having to be taken off the island. Then actually, can we just concentrate on small little ideas to help solve the problem in just a couple of areas? There's obviously there's the unique challenge of being in a rural area, the costs. Some people have a lot of cardboard waste, some people don't have so much, some people might have ways of being able to reuse it and some might not. So we tried to work with different businesses and groups to figure out what was best for them. So this kind of created these microsystems which have worked really well, and I'll go into that now. So the cardboard can be used as packaging. It saves space for those who are paying for their recycling to be taken away as well, and encourages community collaboration and resource sharing. We gifted 7 shredders. They were small. This is a picture of one of them here. We gifted 7 to different places. One went to a coffee shop. One went to a soap and candle maker. One went to a cake maker. One went to a brewery. One went to our Growers Hub here in Broadford, and one went to a community who were setting up a tool library in the north of the island. So different places who were going to be able to use the shredded cardboard in different ways. One example is Dun Brewings. So that's the brewery over in Glenelg. They were using the shredded cardboard for packaging. So they're sending out their craft beers, but all the cardboard that they were getting in, they could then shred and package up all of their products. Much the same for the cake maker and the soap maker. They're sending out all of their products all the time, and they are buying packaging, whether that's compostable polystyrene chips or shredded paper or something. They're buying those things in. And with the cardboard shredder, they can eliminate the cost for them and cost to the environment. So they're reusing the stuff that they already have. Just move on to the next slide. The coffee shop, they were using their shredded cardboard in a slightly different way. They turned it into fire bricks and fire lighters. So again, they're getting all their drinks and products and things coming to them in cardboard boxes. And they were storing lots of that in their sheds and cars and having to take it off to the recycling centre because their bins were too full. And with the shredder, they have been using that to make fire lighters and fire bricks that they use in their stove in their coffee shop. So it's been compressed and they're burning it as a fuel, saving them money on their heating costs, and reducing the amount of other things that they're buying. And again, they're not having to store or try and pay for the cardboard to be recycled. The problem for kind of rural areas is that we can have all of our waste transported quite a long way. I mean, Skye is 60 odd miles already in length, and that's then all of our waste is going, presumably it goes to Inverness, and then on it goes from there probably. So it's much better to try and deal with waste here on the island. So that was kind of the initial thought: deal with the cardboard waste here, see what we can set up. And it turns out that small little microsystems really work. And in one of the earlier webinars, I talked about the Dun Brewing brewery also were working with a local grower. So there was kind of more of a microsystem where they were working with a composting group there as well. So these kind of microsystems have worked really well here on Skye. The shredders are very cost effective. They're easily maintained. It makes them very accessible to small businesses and community groups. So the hope is that the one in Dunvegan and the one in Broadford, there'll be other people who can come and use those as kind of as a community resource as well, or small businesses could come and use it for their own cardboard waste. We've managed to hopefully empower those local businesses to tackle their waste themselves and not just expect it to be sorted out, and to work with others as well. It's easily replicated across the island, and then hopefully these systems can join up, and it's a great kind of circular system for what people are getting their products and waste in, turning it into something that they can either use or pass on to somebody else. So these microsystems for trying to tackle cardboard waste have worked really well on Skye. So I'm going to move on to the next WE project, which is glass reuse. So another big problem, again, much like the cardboard, is that there is a lot of product. There is a lot of either cardboard or glass. So here we worked with the local campsite, which is the community campsite here in Broadford. In past years, there's been problems with the large glass recycling bins not being collected often enough. The campsite go along and the big bin is full up. Not only is that a problem for them, it's a problem for everybody. But the campsite obviously have a lot of glass. They've got their campers using the campsite and they are having to deal with the glass. So there's obviously the cost for their time, having to travel, it's not very far, but travel through the village down to the large glass recycling containers, their time and the costs involved with that, with staff time. So putting something on site at the campsite was thought that it would save them time and actually produce them a product that they could use in the end. So the challenge was that they have a lot of glass waste from the visitors, all the bottles and jars that are being left at the campsite. So yes, as I was saying, those costs, not only just in terms of the time, there's also the increased carbon emissions from all of these lorries having to come and collect glass from those big containers. If we could deal with the waste here, there's less having to be dealt with over in Inverness. And there was no other recycling options here on Skye. So we purchased a glass to sand crusher. It processes the glass waste on site. It's literally, you just feed it into that blue square that's at the top there in the picture. And it crushes the glass bottle or jar into sand, and that aggregate can be used. this is being used on the campsite to support kind of the path maintenance, and putting it down as a kind of a base aggregate as well, so they can reuse these glass bottles and jars on site. So it is predicted, because we've only just bought this at the end of last year, so the campsite is closed over the winter. So it's predicted that in a season they will process over 1 ton of glass waste. So over 4,000 bottles is what they think that they're getting through or having to deal with in a season. So that's roughly 860 kilograms of aggregate that they can use within the community, at the campsite and on the local footpaths, on the local kind of network of footpaths. So that's 100% of the glass waste from the campsite that was going to landfills and external centres is now being dealt with on site, and they have a product that they can use on all the local footpaths. The future plans for this, let me just move on. So this could be scaled up. Other businesses could replicate this again. There's hope that if there's capacity and time willing, that the campsite can offer this as a service as well. There's a possibility to offer a kind of a rental service, and they could make money again from either other people or businesses using it as well. So they're saving their time and costs in having to transport the glass. There's reduced emissions generally, and they now have this product that they can use. These photos here were from this week. Our local otter club, which is run by the International Otter Survival Fund. It's a local children's environmental group, runs once a week. They went to visit the glass crusher. So we are hoping that, like I said, other businesses can get involved, other groups can get involved, and we can start to educate and inform everybody about circular systems and what happens to our waste here on the island. Some of the visitors and residents have already praised how much the benefits that this is going to bring to the local area for the path networks, and being able to sort of see a real benefit for this. Okay, so I'll just move on to the final scheme, which was our reusable pizza box pilot. So here, the objective was to promote sustainability and replace disposable boxes with reusable ones. I'll just go over some of the challenges and some of the outcomes achieved. So we asked 2 large cafes to think about using these reusable boxes, and 2 small cafes, in the hope that they can reduce their waste and carbon footprint by using these. And it was hoped that we would use a deposit return scheme with these businesses. The challenges which we found both the large cafes had, that there was a lack of storage space. So they really didn't have the space. We bought 150 boxes and we're kind of offering 30 to 60 boxes to these businesses, and they didn't have the space to store all of these boxes. And that was space for clean boxes and space for dirty boxes as well. So it was quite a consideration for them in the first instance, where would they put all of these boxes? There were concerns about having the time and resources then to clean them, obviously, which is not involved when they've got a disposable box. And not all of the businesses we spoke to would have suitable washing facilities anyway. Also, there was the challenge of the deposit return system. So Skye's a busy place. There's pizza restaurants it's a very quick, there's a queue out the door and you've got to be quick. So the burden of having to deal with people bringing back boxes and having to hand them back their deposit was quite a concern for these restaurants as well. And it can be just a reluctance to change. It's difficult to make changes. So out of the 2 large cafes that we asked, both said no, but 2 smaller ones had said yes. That was the Glenelg, that was the Dun Brewing. They took some pizza boxes. There was one that was very keen, but they'd already had some bamboo plates. So there was some interest, but ultimately it was quite difficult to talk to businesses about this. They were just quite reluctant. So that was those ones I just talked about. So we did have to make a bit of a shift in our strategy after having bought these boxes. And struggled to get them to the businesses. We actually thought we'd promote them to individuals. So similar to having your own coffee cup, you could have your own reusable pizza box, empowering customers to use them, take them along, and maybe start to show the local establishments that they were keen for this sort of thing to happen. So we did this through some events that we had. We were just handing them out for free to those people who were interested. And in our local refill shop, again, we had stacks of them, and we had a really captive audience there because they were people who were keen on sustainability already and were ready and keen to take home a reusable pizza box that they could use over and over again. So that did work really, really well. At the Dun Brewing, they were using about 30 to 40 disposable boxes. So they reckon they were saving themselves over 400 disposable boxes in a year. So there was a good success with that establishment and great success with giving them to individuals. So yes, just as I said there, the Dun Brewing at the remote, they were offering pizza kind of nights once a month or so. So it wasn't a full-scale pizza business as such, but they were using, as I said, over 400 boxes a year. So that worked really well for them. So in summary, the key factors for success were that business had to have good storage. They needed to be able to clean the boxes, and they needed some high footfall during the summer season, which made it worth their while. They've saved themselves money and reduced the waste. And the same, hopefully, it will be a kind of a cascading effect that those people who've took them as individuals will pass that information on when they go to their own pizza establishments and kind of talk about it. We did work a little bit with the local forest school. They took some of the boxes as well to hand out to the children. And again, it's just kind of another way of educating and talking about the waste that's produced here on the island and offering a solution. So the children learned a bit more about that through the forest school as well. So we really did work. It worked really well with the individuals, raising awareness about sustainability. And we still do have some boxes left, and we have our final event as the partnership this weekend. So we're hoping to spread a bit more awareness and hand out a few more of the pizza boxes, and hopefully some of the local establishments will carry on thinking about this as an option for them in the future. So although we faced challenges at the beginning with the businesses, the shift to talking to individuals really worked very well. the remote pizza business that was over in Glenelg, the Dun Brewing, that worked really well. But they have a very unique situation. So finding solutions that work in the right place was key. So really it is about finding, focusing on businesses with the infrastructure that can handle these things, and really just creating a lot of awareness about these things and hoping that solutions can be found in the future. And now I'll pass you on to Oksana.
Thank you, Amy. Just take control over. So my name is Oksana. Thank you very much for everyone joining us today. I'm representing Thurso Community Development Trust, and today I will speak about 2 pilot projects on introducing the reusable food packaging. So we will start with our internal project, meal deliveries. So our meal deliveries started back in 2019 during the pandemic, when the service addressed most vulnerable elderly and isolated members of our community. And at the time, the daily meal would be delivered to 70 to 80 people. But after 2022, the service was reimagined into a once-a-month sessions of seniors lunch club for those older folk who enjoy socializing, and the meal delivery service to those who are not willing or maybe not able to leave their homes, but still would like this excitement of the surprise meal. So now this project is more about the emotional support rather than nutrition. The meals are cooked, served, and delivered solely by volunteers, and currently the meals are delivered to roughly 25 customers. So in 2023, we started looking for reusable packaging to replace the disposable tubs and bags for our Meals on Wheels project. And the reusable tubs had to be microwave, freezer, and dishwasher proof. And in addition, they needed to be lightweight and easy to handle for our customers. So we went for the IKEA plastic food containers and the EcoChic thermal insulated lunch bags. It was really heartwarming to see how so many members of our community wanted to contribute to the success of this project, starting from the chefs and delivery drivers who were eager to take on extra steps in their work to improve the service. The lunch bags were ordered through our local independent shop that stocks EcoChic products, and they managed to arrange super quick delivery for us and for the best price. A member of community collected the IKEA containers from Edinburgh store as bulk delivery to Thurso is impossible. And another community member donated a badge machine so that we could brand the bags. And then the local crafter designed and made for us the vinyl stickers to brand the tubs. So as the meal consists of the main course and the dessert, the food used to be boxed into 2 biodegradable tubs and delivered in a disposable paper bag. So that resulted in generating up to 75 single-use items going to waste per delivery, and they also look boring and blunt. So shifting to reusables not only had obvious waste reduction benefits, but also we really wanted to be bringing smiles onto the faces of our precious customers every time they were getting their meal. So we added the wow factor to the service by having the lunch bags in all available patterns. So I think we have about 15 different styles so that our customers get a nice surprise and a different bag almost every time they receive a meal. And they really enjoy this. In advance of the first pilot delivery, we called all our customers and explained the change. For the first couple of months, we also enclosed the leaflet reminding the reusable packaging needs to be returned in exchange for the next delivery. So during the 6 months of the piloted use of the reusables, we haven't lost a single item of packaging, and to date, the return rate still holds as 100%. So partially this is due to the nature of our project and its logistics, but also, and very importantly, all our elderly customers really warmly welcomed the shift to reusables, as people of the older generation aren't affected as much by the throwaway disposable culture. So they feel grateful that they now can enjoy their meals without generating waste, and they do love their cute bags. So on completion of the project, the meal delivery service simply carries on with the same routine. using the reusables and swapping the packaging at the meal delivery times, and using reusable packaging really became second nature to anyone involved in the project. And we couldn't be happier that we got this opportunity to upgrade our meal deliveries thanks to the funding from the National Lottery and Climate Action Fund and us being a part of Highland Community Waste Partnership. So now we'll move on to our next project. And if our first pilot, we had really angels for our target audience. So second piloted use of reusables was quite a challenge, and it was delivered to teenagers in Thurso High School. So in 2023, Thurso Community Development Trust were invited to lead on the zero waste cooking classes, or workshops rather, for the year 3 pupils of Thurso High School. And that's when we found out that all the food that is cooked in the classrooms had to be taken home by pupils. And this is the way how the school avoided generating food waste. So if pupils forgot to bring their own food containers, they would be provided with a disposable one by the school. And both teachers and janitors were complaining about the amount of those tubs thrown away, often still full of freshly cooked food, and often contaminating the bins assigned for recycling. So this is when the idea of collaborating with Thurso High was born for running this pilot project on the introduction of reusable food container option for them. And clearly, just swapping disposable food containers for the reusable ones would not change the situation. And introduction of reusables had to be supported with a behavior change campaign. So we started with the bin audit just to understand how bad things were. And the situation was not as great, as you can see from the results on the screen. However, there certainly were positive findings of the bin audit as well, because we could see that majority were making an effort to separate the waste. It was obvious also that soft plastic was correctly perceived by Thurso High as recyclable. They were just making this unfortunate mistake of placing it into the mixed recycling bins, and thus contaminated the good recycling. Therefore, the improvement of recycling skills with the special focus on soft plastic was included into the scope of the behavior change campaign for us. So the motto of the campaign was selected together with a sustainability committee formed from the school prefects. In the world of pollution, be a solution. And the campaign itself was called Be a Solution. And our main levers in attempt to change the teenagers' behavior were giving away initiative to children as much as possible, because we all know how much they like to be doing as they're told. So the school prefects were the campaign ambassadors for the pupils at school, minimizing the interactions with the adults. Pupils themselves designed the logo to brand the new containers and the web banner for the Be a Solution website. We tapped into their competitive spirit, and we used the schoolhouse system to our benefit, and the entire campaign basically was the battle between the houses for a grand prize, the visit to the cinema. We made the campaign as much digitalized as possible, and we mainly communicated with the pupils by means of putting the posters with QR codes and creating the Be a Solution website, where we kept all relevant information and announcements. We certainly did no criticizing or preaching, and our tools were only positive encouragement and focus on achievements. And of course, we bribed the children with the money. We placed our bet on fake it till you make it principle, and all Be a Solution campaign was built around encouraging pupils to recycle better and prioritize reuse by paying them for it or giving them prizes, with the hope that after doing the right thing for money for a while, it would turn into a habit. So Be a Solution campaign was soft launched in November 2023, and it was completed in May 2024. The campaign consisted of several components: motivational and informative posters, social media posts and reels on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, and Be a Solution website. We arranged the recycling competition between the houses, and each house had the branded recycling bin that had to be filled with the good recycling. The more recycling, the more points went onto the score of the house. And there were individual competitions. We announced art contests for the best logo to brand the Be a Solution food containers, for the best web banner for the Be a Solution campaign website, and for best art installation made of waste. Soft plastic challenge was arranged as well, and pupils were to collect all sorts of soft plastic waste, and they could exchange every half a kilo of soft plastic for £10 with us. We have to say that this challenge was a real eye-opener, not just for the students, but also for their parents and Thurso High staff. And in overall, 11 kilograms of soft plastic was submitted to us during the soft plastic challenge. So the pilot introduction of the reusable food containers finally took place in January, February 2024, after the seeds were sown by the campaign. The pilot covered all pupils of Year 3 attending hospitality classes, 169 children altogether at the age of 13, 14 years old. For their cooking lessons, the Year 3 pupils are divided into 10 groups, each group having their hospitality class once a week. Thus, the pilot covered 40 lessons. And during the 4 weeks, the teachers were registering how many containers were given away by the school and how many students brought their own with them. We also made several suggestions to optimize processes around hospitality classes, and one of them was to actually stop forcing pupils to take the cooked food home. And that was the very reason why the unwanted food was thrown away together with the disposable, potentially recyclable containers. So to deal with the leftover food resulting from this change, we made arrangements with our local sharing shed that would now accept the food cooked at Thurso High class kitchens. So here we want to emphasize that the objective of the Be a Solution campaign was not to promote the use of Be a Solution new containers. The objective was to promote reuse, and where reuse wasn't an option, responsible recycling. So the Be a Solution containers are just a sustainable backup for the school to give away in those inevitable situations when pupils forget to bring their reusables for hospitality classes. Hence, the measure of success for us was to see low rates of users of the Be a Solution containers. So during the pilot, the pupils forgot their reusable and had to borrow Be a Solution containers in 21% of the cases. For reference, during the previous academic year, 2022-2023, the rate of pupils failing to bring their own reusable was roughly 55%. Thus, we are delighted to state that with some positive encouragement and additional education, it was possible to change the behavioral pattern of the pupils of this target group, which is very challenging, selected for the pilot. So you can see the final impact stats on the screen, and I just want to say that restricted access to the pupils and school activities was our biggest challenge that we had to face. And while we had really tremendous support from Thurso High staff on all levels, but the school routine by its nature is very rigid and busy, so it leaves very little space for maneuver. And while having this obvious advantage of covering literally every secondary school child in Thurso and area by this campaign, but the complexity of communications and synchronizing activities with school life was a significant obstacle. So it's our vision that such like climate action activities within schools, though very effective, but would work best if planned and delivered as part of the school curriculum. So thank you for listening. That's all from me, and I'm over to Jan.
Oh, hi there. Georgina was going to take over this wee bit, but she's...
Oh, sorry, I was muted, Joanne. I was muted.
Oh, right, okay. I thought you'd gone email. I thought you'd run away.
I was talking away. So yes, hello again. I'll start from the beginning. So yeah.
Your camera's off as well, G. I don't know if that was...
hang on. No, there we go. Thanks, guys. There we go. Confusion of having multiple screens. So let's try this a third time. Hello. So yeah, I'm just jumping in to talk a little bit about a project that actually one of our partners, Velocity Café, ran. They aren't able to be here today, so I will do my best to do it justice. So this is a project that they ran in the first year of the project. Basically, they run Velocity Café and Bicycle Workshop is a sort of environmental organization in its own right, but also ran a cafe, a really popular cafe. And one of the things that they wanted to look at really early on in the project was sort of how to reduce some of their single-use packaging waste. Obviously recognizing that single-use packaging waste is really difficult to recycle. So an alternative is really necessary. And also recognizing that, they weren't going to get rid of single use completely. So this is why they wanted to focus on reuse and promoting reusables within the cafe. So we kind of had a conversation about ways to do that. And one of the things that we discussed is that in order to promote reusables, generally, it's good to implement a charge on single use. That's been proven to be one of the most effective ways to encourage people to take up reusable options. So they set out to do that basically in a couple of ways. So this was back in 2022. They started out, first of all, with sort of reusable cups and then expanded the intervention to look at reusable lunch boxes as well. But basically, so they decided to implement a 40p charge on their single-use items within the cafe. In addition to that, they ran an in-store campaign, sort of raising awareness of the fact that they were doing it and really sort of aiming to separate out kind of the cost of the packaging from the cost of the drink as a way of, sort of engaging people around this the choice to reuse. And at the same time as implementing the charge, they also started retailing their own sort of cafe branded reusable options that would be available to people as an alternative. So a couple of ways there to engage with reuse, basically, either encouraging people to bring their own reusable to avoid a charge, and also providing, retailing reusables for people who didn't have one already, and raising a lot of awareness around it. So a few things, just a few reflections really from the project, from the cafe. So the first thing is that they found that it was generally good to combine those two interventions. So if they were implementing a charge, they felt like, it was good to also be able to provide a reusable option for people who didn't have it. So that was sort of the rationale around retailing the reusable cups and lunch boxes. In terms of sort of implementing the charge as a business, first of all, they didn't feel like it was, it was a really onerous or kind of challenging thing to do either for themselves or for their consumers. They kind of compared it, to the equivalent of an extra charge for, say, plant-based milks that they were implementing. And they also generally felt that, the charge was likely to help offset the costs of running that scheme. And generally, feedback from their customers was really positive. They sold a lot of reusables. We weren't able to get exact data on the extent to which it increased reuse, but the feedback from both customers and businesses was positive, and there was a general sense that it had been a positive intervention. So that's just a really short little piece from me about this intervention. And I will pass on to Ellie, who will now talk about some of the more region-wide interventions that we ran across the Scottish Highlands to promote recycling and reuse.
I'm on mute. Okay. Yes, I am going to talk about some of the campaigns and projects that Keep Scotland Beautiful ran across the Highlands as a whole. So I'm going to take a quick step away from reuse, which we will come back to, and talk about single-use cup recycling to start with. So the project came about because the latest estimates from Zero Waste Scotland estimate it at around, nearly 400 million cups used in Scotland every year, and it is continuing to grow year on year. So we know that single-use cups are a significant problem across the UK, not just Scotland, but we, as Keep Scotland Beautiful, we collaborated with the National Cup Recycling Scheme, who we've worked with before on other projects, to provide a solution that we thought was best placed for the Highlands, which was the cup box. So we were offering 2 free boxes for workplaces, hospitality venues, and other community locations to be able to not only recycle their single-use cups, but also provide them with some campaign materials to raise awareness and education about why cups pose a problem and why they need to be recycled separately. We managed to get 18 different locations on board that ranged from Skye up to Thurso, a couple in Inverness. So we managed to get 18 locations pretty well spread out across the Highlands. And we've managed to divert around 10,000 cups from landfill, which has been a great outcome. We have already seen some of those boxes be uplifted and replaced with their second box. So about 5 locations have already moved on to their next box, and as well as 2 that sadly have discontinued due to contamination issues, which I will come on to. The main learnings that we sort of gained from this pilot, number 1 has to be the misconceptions that are out there around compostables and the various different materials that single-use cups are made of. Despite the messaging both on the box and on all of our campaign materials, saying that the cup box was not a suitable solution for compostable cups, but only for recyclable cups. So that is your more traditional plastic-lined, paper-based cup. I still found that between 40 and 50% of all the inquiries I got about getting a cup box were from people who were currently using compostable cups. Quite probably because in the Highlands, it's a lot of small and medium businesses who are independent and who are trying to make what they perceive as the greenest choice when it comes to their packaging. So the people who I guess were interested in a cup box were sustainably minded and therefore using what they believed to be the most green option for them, which was a compostable cup. But sadly, that meant that they couldn't necessarily take part in the cup box. It was also something that caused confusion for those customers engaging with the cup box. So in one spot check I did in Inverness, 30% of the cups that were in the box were compostables and therefore, unfortunately, contamination for that box. So a lot of conversations I had with both organisations looking to get a box and also with customers that I've spoken to sort of across the 3 years really of the partnership. There's a lot of confusion about the recyclability of different cups. What kind of cup am I holding in my hand? It's not always super easy to tell whether you're holding a compostable cup or a more traditional plastic lined cup. And then you've got to deal with the challenge of knowing where it should or shouldn't go when you're trying to dispose of it. So there's definitely a role for, I think, a lot of education and awareness, not just about the problem of single use, because I think that by now a lot of people appreciate that single use as a whole is going to be bad for the planet, but making sure that they then have the information and have the knowledge as well as the infrastructure to recycle it effectively and efficiently. Many people putting their coffee cups, both compostable and recyclable, into a mixed recycling stream are doing so with the best of intentions, but that actually ends up as contamination and is removed from that recycling stream, and so isn't going where most people think it's going. Similarly with compostables, people buy that tend to think that they are, trying to make a good choice around their packaging without necessarily having a way for that packaging to reach an industrial compostable site. So whether that packaging is then actually getting composted is sort of another question altogether. That I would say is the sort of main point that I certainly got out of this pilot. In terms of the things that we came across with the participants, it took on average 5 months for those who have filled a box to fill it completely, which was a little bit longer than we had expected. That's probably due to the fact that most of our boxes were operating in what we would consider low season, so probably not as busy as it might have been during summer months. We found that the boxes worked best in workplaces mostly. That was usually due to the fact that there's a sink where people can empty out any remaining liquid from their coffee cup before it goes in the box, which reduce contamination issues. And also there's generally someone keeping an eye on the bins in a workplace anyway. There's always, hopefully, usually a couple of people who are really on it with the recycling in an office space, and so they will be there to make sure that things are running smoothly with the box. We found it was actually less useful within a hospitality setting, obviously by the nature of single use. People are taking their coffee and leaving the venue, so it's not necessarily the best place for a box to be positioned for people to be disposing of their cup. The pros and cons of the cardboard box model. So a couple of really good things about the cup box is that it is cardboard, it arrives flat packed, super easy to assemble, and then once it's full, it's lifted as a single entity and to be recycled. So that makes it pretty straightforward in terms of delivery and uplift. The drawbacks are obviously that because it's made of cardboard, if there is a lot of liquid contamination, that can cause the box to essentially break down. So we did have 2 sites discontinuing just because they found that the contamination issue where they had the boxes placed was becoming an issue for them. They didn't necessarily have the staff time to keep on top of that, or it was in a really busy footfall area where people were just essentially using the box as a general waste bin. But 2 sites out of 18, not too bad. The other sort of models of cup recycling tend to be in tubes or stackers, where there's a tube for lids, a tube for cups, and a tube for liquid. So in a way, they make the steps that you need to go through to recycle it a bit more obvious for people. And obviously it has that container for liquid, so you don't necessarily need to be beside a sink. However, that definitely does mean that you've got to be more on top of it, and there's cleaning and emptying and all of that involved. Whereas, like I say, the cardboard box model is it gets picked up as a single entity and taken away and replaced. So there are certainly pros and cons, but like I say, we found that workplaces, it worked pretty smoothly. People were pretty happy with it, and they probably filled up their box probably the quickest as well. So in terms of what's next for this particular pilot, as I say, I think there's certainly a place for a lot of us working in this space to tackle the myths around compostables and other packaging types, making sure that people know that regardless of whether it is a compostable cup or a plastic lined cup, that cups need to be recycled separately and in the correct way. This is more of a personal observation. I am starting to see more bin signage where things will say landfill and coffee cups. So for example, I know that in Inverness Station, their recycling bins say and coffee cups. And often there'll be recycling bins that specifically say no coffee cups as well. So I am sort of seeing a bit of an increase in that, which is obviously helping people know where they shouldn't be putting their cups. If you're a business, I think the important thing to do is just question where your cups need to be going and think about how they're going to get there. So as I mentioned, a lot of the business engagement I did was with hospitality businesses that are very short on time, and often they were looking for a good solution and they felt like they'd found it and felt that was the box ticked. But then when I was kind of coming to them with information about a cup box, sort of thinking through where are these compostable cups actually being composted, they sort of made them sort of think twice potentially about whether this was actually the right solution for them or not. The good news is that the National Cup Recycling Scheme will be continuing to offer cup boxes to the Highlands, although because it means using a slightly different logistic system to what they do for the rest of the mainland, that will be on more of a sort of case-by-case bespoke basis. So it just means contacting the National Cup Scheme directly, and they'll sort of figure that out for each individual location. But I'm sure when we share this, I can share the right email address to get in touch with them if anyone's interested in a cup box. I just wanted to show some of those sort of signage that I was talking about, and also the sort of stacker box where it's more obviously for single-use cups because it's shaped like a cup, but also just that increased amount of signage sort of reminding people where cups should or shouldn't be going still quite a confusing area of waste management. So I just wanted to sort of demonstrate the fact that it is quite confusing, and it's totally understandable that both businesses and customers find it a bit complex. So generally, when I'm talking to people about this is how it brings me on to talking about reuse, because we get to basically answer all of these problems if we all just start to reuse. So there's a couple of projects and pilots that we ran that fall under the banner really of promoting refill and reuse. So I'll start off with our main campaign that was Choose to Reuse. We basically targeted this because we know that 11 billion items of packaging waste are generated simply by our on-the-go food habits in the UK every year. And we also know from polling that we did early on that 82% of people in the Highlands are concerned about the amount of packaging. So it's certainly something that people are aware of and care about. So we developed, first of all, a consumer campaign that was run on our own social media channels and on our own communication channels, but also across all of the partners as well. And then we developed a business pack for food and drink businesses that wanted to display our campaign materials in store and on site to give people that reminder which is often what we need, to bring their water bottle tomorrow or bring their coffee cup tomorrow so that they can avoid single-use packaging when we are out and about. The main things we learned from the business engagement we did here. So the business pack was available to download from our website, but the delivery team also went out and about in their local area to hand this out to local businesses that were interested in trying to do something to promote reuse. We found that a lot of hospitality businesses were already happy to accept reusables, and perhaps took for granted that people knew that that was a choice available to them, but weren't necessarily actively promoting or incentivizing reuse in store. So that was one place where our campaign materials were there to help. We're there at a point of sale reminder for people that, do you have your coffee cup in your bag? If you do, remember to get out and use it. Again, with water bottles and lunch boxes as well. We also found that those who were offering some sort of incentive tend to opt for a discount. So lots of places will offer you a discount if you use your reusable coffee cup. But we do know that a charge is more effective to increase behaviour change. But a lot of hospitality places I spoke to about this were hesitant or concerned about using a sort of negative angle of a charge rather than a discount, which seems like a positive thing. So yeah, still there were a few places that were, as with Velocity, adding on that charge of about 20p, 25p, but very few places compared to those who were offering a discount. Overall, I would say that in this space, when we're talking about food and drink on the go, everyone, both customers and businesses, are time short and habitual. So we all know that we go in, get a coffee, get out. It's a very fast-paced environment. It's a very fast-paced transaction, and people are pretty habitual in where they go, what they order, who they go into to get their coffee from, etc. So it's not always just about cost. It's not always just about making it free or easy. Often things need to be happening in conjunction, so they need both that prompt and an incentive in many cases. So it's trying to both remind those who are already environmentally minded to bring their reusables, but also incentivizing those who might want to be doing it for more of that cost-saving reason. So this is something that will continue to be available on the partnership website once we close down. So if anyone is interested, that you can download the Choose to Reuse comms pack from our legacy website, and you can always help us to signpost small businesses and local businesses to go get that comms pack as well. One other thing that we did in order to try and promote refill and reuse was several of our partners chose to become their local community refill schemes. This was in partnership with City to C. So City to C run a refill app and a refill campaign. The delivery team went out to their local shops and local businesses to try and get the businesses onto the refill app. The refill app is one way that businesses can show their support for refill and reuse. So as I was saying before, a lot of them kind of assumed that people were doing it if they wanted to, whereas being on the app means that people can see what local coffee shops and what local restaurants are sort of promoting reuse and refill and supporting that. The partners were best placed to do this. They had local connections, they're a familiar face in the area, so they very kindly went out and spoke to all of their local restaurants and cafes and in their area to try and get as many people on the app as possible. We don't have the data just yet. I'm still waiting to see how much we've increased it by, but just by me looking on a regular basis, we have managed to increase the numbers of places that are offering refill and reuse on the refill app, so that's great. If you're interested in any of this sort of work, we are our sort of partners will still remain operating as refill schemes, so get in touch with your local scheme, or if you're interested in launching your own community refill scheme, to get in touch with City to C. The next campaign that we were working on was the Try Refill campaign. So this was looking really at the amount of single-use packaging we buy as part of our weekly grocery shop, whether that's our groceries or household items, and to really try and raise awareness of this, we started off with a social media campaign, but we encouraging people to give refill a go, essentially. We also had an online directory of the various zero waste and refill shops that were available in the Highlands, which was more than I expected. And not just zero waste shops that offer everything packaging free, but also some very particular services. So that might be cleaning products, or there was one that was bicycle products. So very specific specialist shops that were making the choice to do that without packaging. The other thing that we did was to get together all of those retailers to discuss what was working for them and what wasn't at the minute, how we could support them and get sort of more people giving refill a go. That sort of peer-to-peer network was very useful for a lot of them. I appreciate that most of them, well, all of them are small business owners, so incredibly busy people. So occasionally it was not always convenient for them to join meetings in the middle of the day, for example, but I hope that there's some relationships formed there that will continue. Very quickly discovered it was a challenging retail space, and we will be producing a report that goes into a bit more detail about the specific challenges that are in this retail space, and particularly for the Highlands. But just to sort of cover some of them, more recent polling that we did shows that 28% of people in the Highlands know about a local place that they can refill their dry goods or their household goods, but don't currently use it. But there was a further 50% of people who said that they would use one if they knew of one nearby. So there's certainly some appetite for it that we need to try and get the message out there a bit more. It requires a careful mix of messaging. This was some feedback that I got from that sort of peer-to-peer network, that talking to different retailers about what sort of challenges they had been facing, trying to make sure that it doesn't become an kind of exclusive place. It's somewhere where people feel that they can come into and give it a go if they've never tried a refill or zero waste shopping before. It became really apparent that a lot of these shops are integral parts of their high street or integral parts of their community. They're not just shops that offer groceries, but they are also offering workshops and events. They might also be a cafe. They might also be part of, they might be community run. They are often they're not doing one thing, they're wearing lots of hats. There's also something about trying to keep it affordable for people to be able to refill. So having some innovative profit-making services that mean that basics can remain affordable for the vast majority of people. So things I've seen people doing include delivery or meal kits, or like I say, having a coffee shop, a section, and also the sort of business to business approach of the tourism section. Sorry, the tourism sector in the Highlands is obviously huge. So whether that's offering cleaning or toiletry refills in a sort of bulk buy packaging free way to B&Bs, etc. Was definitely something that came up with a couple of people I spoke to. So it's a really interesting area, and certainly something that I think that there's space to sort of support more. So my advice would be to support your local zero waste shop. Doesn't have to be your full grocery shop, your full sort of big weekly shop. For example, I buy sort of things like shampoo or washing up liquid or laundry liquids in like 5-litre containers. I fill it up once every 2 months, and it's that's the sort of thing that I go to my local refill shop for. Equally, if you're a community group or a local business, I would recommend collaborating with them, run an event or a workshop with them, figure out some really exciting joined up selling schemes. So making that sort of hyper local sellers, producers, really interesting products. So I've seen a couple of really great collaborations in terms of that. So like bakers offering really great bread and pastry items and things like that. And finally, so the final pilot I'll be talking about was our returnable packaging pilot in collaboration with Vital. So Vital is pretty sure still Europe's biggest returnable packaging scheme. We, as Keep Scotland Beautiful, have worked with them previously on the Highland Cup movement. That was specifically around the North Coast 500 and specifically on coffee cups. We took this a bit further, and we expanded this to offer it to the whole of the Highlands and to also offer Vital's full brochure of packaging. So they have anything you can think of, from sushi trays to burger boxes to pizza boxes to coffee cups and bowls of all different sizes. As Amy mentioned earlier with the pizza boxes, this was certainly a bit of a difficult sell to hospitality. I think any of us who were engaging with hospitality in the Highlands found that trying to find the right time of year to introduce new things and get people to try new things was a bit tricky. We're either trying to talk to them in high season when they're extremely busy, or trying to bring in new things in low season when they might not be working the hours that they would previously, or we're trying to test out a new initiative that may then not work for them come high season again. So but a bit difficult to find the right time to approach businesses with this sort of new initiative. As I mentioned before, when we were looking at the recycling boxes, compostables can often feel like a bit of a tick box for time-short business owners. They've got 100 different choices to make every day. They feel like they've got themselves covered when they talk about their packaging because they've done loads of research and found the right compostables, and that can often sort of mean that they're not engaging with reuse alternatives. And again, as Amy said with the pizza boxes, even though we were funding this trial of returnable packaging, the costs were often seen as a bit of a barrier. Even though in the long run, potentially you're saving money on buying in hundreds of compostables every week or month, the sort of upfront cost of joining a scheme like this was occasionally some off-putting for some. There was also the same sort of uncertainty and concern about added time pressures on both staff and customers. So like I say about the habitual nature of getting food and drink on the go, adding in those sort of new steps to people's routine of either buying or selling was sometimes a bit of a concern, and washing and returning and that sort of thing. So incentives can help on both sides of the equation. So making it a bit of a competition for staff. So getting them to essentially upsell the idea of returnables at the point of sale, and yeah, getting into that sort of competitive nature that Oksana was talking about can be one way to get them to sort of break that normal habit and get into a new habit with the returnables. And similarly on the consumer side of things, offering a discount or charge alongside the returnables, sort of in conjunction, those two things can make people switch their habits. The biggest hurdle probably for the consumer side was having the app that you need for Vital products. So it's an app-based system with a QR code on each piece of packaging that you essentially scan in and scan out. Having that app downloaded in advance was often the biggest hurdle for people. So once you're at the cash desk and you're buying your food or your drink, then having to think about downloading an app was sometimes a bit too clunky for people. So once people had the app and they were coming in and were used to using it, things were a lot smoother. Vital are looking at offering new ways of doing this so that you don't have to have the app, and it's a bit more sort of tap and go. And it's just worth pointing out that of our 3 participating locations, the one where we saw the most use of the returnable packaging, they don't offer single use at all. So this was there as a sort of a backup option for people who didn't know that they don't offer single use. So in their local area, they're very well known for what they do. So people are sort of pre-prepared, come in with their own reusable on a daily basis. But if people were coming in not knowing that necessarily, the returnables were there as a backup option for people to still be able to pick up their food and drink. So what's next in the returnable packaging world? So we have a returnables fact sheet, which goes into a lot more detail than I was able to go into here about how different models of returnable packaging work, sort of pros and cons of each, and how they can be implemented. So that will be available to download from our legacy website. I'd also say keep an eye out on Borrow Cup, which we're currently part of running in Glasgow. That's with a lot of big name brands, Costa, Nero, etc., but also a couple of the independents, quite a few of the independents in Glasgow. So keep an eye out on that. And it's also worth remembering that it doesn't always have to be a high-tech app option. Certainly from looking at a lot of my colleagues' projects and pilots that they've been running in the sort of, as Amy said, those sort of micro answers to these problems, it's also possible to set up your own deposit scheme. So having a library of mugs and taking a small deposit of £1 or £2 can be an easier way to go if you're dealing with locals and regulars who you see on a daily basis, and it's pretty straightforward for everyone. Or even, and this was a suggestion from one of my participants who she says, you know, especially in low season, she knows everyone who comes in on a daily basis. She's quite a small shop. Just having a mug library and an honesty box might be a better solution for her. So as with a lot of our pilots and schemes, kind of finding the right solution for the right place and the right audience is always going to be key here. Just my final thoughts on this. Zero Waste Scotland did some, or have released some polling recently, and they've said that 74% of people would switch to reusables if a charge was introduced. So the charge would provide an incentive for customers who wouldn't normally be motivated by environmental messaging to look for an alternative to avoid that charge, when currently single use is seen as perceived at least as free. And then obviously it would be dependent on businesses to provide their customers with a convenient solution to the charge. And that's where interventions such as returnable packaging can certainly play a role. Until then, I think that it's vital that we continue to raise awareness of the impact of single use, but also provide that point of sale prompt for those of us that are sustainably minded. And it's also, as I've mentioned a few times, I think essential that we look at the myths and misconceptions around the recyclability of single-use cups and single-use packaging, which may in turn push more people higher up the waste hierarchy. As I say, don't have to answer the recycling question if you're reusing. And that is it from me. So I'll hand back to Georgina.
Super. Thank you very much, Ellie. That was great. And thanks also to Oksana and Amy for their presentations. As keeps coming through time and time again in these webinars, there's just a tremendous amount of work that's been done. So yeah, congrats to the team. Really well done for all of that. And yeah, I mean, I guess just a little note from us at Keep Scotland Beautiful. Obviously, packaging is something that we do a lot of work on. 53% of people see cup litter across sort of Scotland's places. So yeah, it's a significant issue that really needs addressed, and it's something that we've been working on, particularly on the prevention side, more and more sort of for the past 7 years, I think, with initiatives like our cup movement in Glasgow and the Highlands, the Take It Back recycling scheme. So yeah, a really important space for us. So really good to see sort of some of the stuff coming through. Obviously, the cup charge that Ellie mentioned is also an important intervention that's currently in consultation with the Scottish Government. It's something that Keep Scotland Beautiful sits on the advisory board for. And yeah, we're very supportive of a cup charge, both as a measure for behavior change and culture change, but also as a measure that will generate income that can then be reinvested into further reuse and recycling solutions. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say about this space. But then yeah, and some of the earlier projects just really show, I think as well, the importance of local solutions, local grassroots solutions. That's what the Highland Community Waste Partnership has been all about. And really great impacts achieved there as well. So we have about 10 minutes left in today's session, and we welcome any questions from any of you. You can drop them in the chat or feel free to raise your hand and speak up. And you can also contact us, obviously, at this email address, highlandcommunitywaste@keepscotlandbeautiful.org, if anything comes to you after today's session, and visit our website for any further information. I've got a question from Marion. Hello, nice to see you. Come on in, Marion.
Hi, thank you everybody for speaking today. It's been really interesting. I've actually got a couple of questions for Amy. The first one was about the cardboard shredder, and just if there was a ballpark cost. I think you said you had a couple of those units out and about, so I was just wondering how much do they cost? Just if that was something that we could encourage other people to do.
Hi, yes, they do range. You can buy obviously different versions. We bought ones there. I think they were about well, they're just under 1,000, but there's various versions. But I
did
always
have a quick
get you the
like
model and things that we used and send that across to you.
Perfect, thank you. I'll pop my email in the chat. It's just handy to know. And
they were good size. They're really
question-
portable. They're quite they were a good one. So yeah, I'll send that.
Fab, thank you. My second question was about the glass crusher, which seemed just like a fun name. But also, I was wondering if there was any comment on, was it time consuming to use? Because it looked like the blue bit was relatively small. Do they have to stand in like one at a time vibe? Like, yeah.
Yes, but it's very fast. We should have got a video, but yeah, in terms of it's no different to having to push it through the slots when you go to the big bins, you know,
Okay.
exactly the same thing. You've got to stand there and do that, and it goes obviously into
Yeah.
those massive big bins, but you're standing there and it instantly makes sand at your feet into a bucket, which one of the photos showed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a small little bucket then, and then you've got that straight away. So
Yeah.
it's the same kind of time
So I
involved.
guess, yeah, in terms of encouraging community members to use a machine like that, like that's not a barrier. You know, you're not stood there the whole day and it's a safety thing, so you can't leave it. You just chuck it in, make sand at your feet while you're boiling the kettle. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll put my email in the chat so you can send me the cardboard thing, mate. That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fab, thanks for that. Any other questions from anyone? Checking the chat as well. Okay, well, like I say, if anything comes to you or you want to get in touch with anyone on the team about any of this going forward, please do. Keep an eye out for both the recordings from these sessions and our various legacy outputs. So the report and case studies and resources, all of which will live on the legacy website in due course. And yeah, if there's no more questions, I think we can finish up. Thanks everyone for taking the time to join us today. And enjoy the rest of your evening.